Part 2 Introduction, Ethical Theories and Perspectives. In this video, we're going to transition toward talking about ethical theories. In order to help with this, we're going to consider what characteristics it's important for moral theories to have. We'll consider 2 questions we can ask about the origin of moral claims, and this will lead into 4 key criteria for assessing any moral theory. We'll talk about how the process of ethics works, and one view of what ethical progress might look like. There are 2 questions we can ask about the origins of moral claims. First, we can ask, how do people form their beliefs about moral right and wrong? And this is a question that we've been thinking about a lot. So, young children obtain most of their moral convictions from their parents, both from what they're told and from how their parents act. Religious teachings can also have a formative influence on people as they're growing up. Conscience, or that intuitive inner prodding that guides us and makes us feel guilty when we do wrong, might contribute to our moral reasoning. And the influence of teachers and other significant people in our lives may also enter into the mix. Sometimes people are even influenced by an ethics course to form their ethical beliefs. But a very different question is, what makes something right or wrong? So, are moral principles just given to us, like the laws of nature? A major task of ethical theory is to address the second question, which it attempts to do by fulfilling 2 related goals. First, it should simplify the vast realm of morals down to a few foundational principles or values. It should do this as completely as possible, without neglecting any part of morality. And second, these principles or values ought to explain why certain things are good or bad, or right or wrong. To some degree, the first goal serves the second. If we can distill the entire realm of morality down to just a few foundations, we'll probably have located the essence of morality in these foundations. To be fully adequate, an ethical theory should satisfy a couple other criteria as well. Adding these to our previous observations, we have 4 key criteria for assessing any moral theory. 1. Completeness. 2. Explanatory power. 3. Practicability. And 4. Moral confirmation. I'm going to now talk about each of these. Completeness. So, completeness asks, does the theory encompass and support the entire range of meaningful moral claims? If a theory neglects certain kinds of moral claims, or if it can make no sense of a moral concept, then it leaves something out that ought to be included. For example, hedonistic theories, which explain moral right and wrong as that which promotes the greatest pleasure or happiness, have been charged with not making adequate sense of justice. If this criticism is right, and we don't have to believe that it is, but if we believe it's right, then what they're charging hedonistic theories here with is that they're not sufficiently complete, because they can't make sense of justice, which is something we want our moral theory to be able to make sense of. Completeness is clearly a crucial goal for any ethical theory. Please note, however, that completeness has nothing to do with whether a theory's claims are true. If an ethical theory is complete, then it fully addresses its subject. Whether an ethical theory's account is actually true is another matter entirely. Now, the next criteria is explanatory power. A theory should provide a satisfying, unifying, and explanatory basis for the moral realm. It ought to supply us with genuine moral insights that powerfully contribute to our understanding of what makes things good or right. Ideally, it should capture the essence of morality. Hedonistic theories, for instance, explain morality. Hedonistic theories, for instance, explain morally right acts as those that promote happiness. To the degree that this is true, we thus learn that morality and happiness are closely related. This is an instructive and useful discovery. Compare this to a computer program that can tell us whether anything is morally good or bad, right or wrong. It does this with perfect accuracy, but it can't tell us anything else. Such a program would clearly satisfy completeness, but it would lack explanatory power, since it says nothing about what makes something good or right. We might wonder, does fulfilling the explanatory power criterion make a theory any more likely to be true? As with completeness, explanatory power has nothing to do with an account's truth. Practicability. Practicability measures how useful a theory can be to us in actual practice. Practicability includes several components. First, a theory should generate clear and precise moral claims. If a moral claim tends to be vague, leaving us unsure about what it's telling us to do, then it's not very much help. For example, consider the principle, don't hurt people unless they deserve it. A little reflection quickly reveals that this prescription isn't very practicable. In fact, it raises more questions than it answers. How much hurt are we talking about? And what does it mean for someone to deserve to be hurt? Next, an ethical theory must furnish substantial moral guidance to ordinary people, taking into account human intellectual and physical limitations. Suppose a theory tells us that no one should spend money on a lottery if they're not going to win. This would require a godlike knowledge of the future to determine when it'd be right to buy a ticket. So it's not much use to those who are not gods. Finally, a theory's value or prescriptions should not generate irresolvable conflicts. For instance, a practicable theory should not leave us unable to resolve Sandra's dilemma about whether lives or lies are more important from the previous chapter. As with the previous criteria, practicability has nothing to do with an account actually being correct. Now, the fourth criteria, moral confirmation. A theory is morally confirmed if we have a good reason for thinking it actually gives correct answers to our moral questions. But if we already know what's right, why do we need ethical theories at all? Well, we do in fact have pretty good ideas about what's right for at least some parts of the moral realm. So to start with, a moral theory's claims should agree with what we know about these parts. We have a deep, clear, and widely shared moral intuitions about wrongs, like torturing innocent children, cold-blooded murder, and widespread dishonesty. But how do we know we're at least right about these things? Well, we have to start somewhere. And our strongest and clearest intuitions are the best place to start. While we could be mistaken about even these, it doesn't seem very likely. After all, people throughout human history have agreed that such things are wrong, or at least have gotten upset when such things have been done to them. Doing ethics resembles doing science in certain respects. In science, we begin testing a theory's major claims by experiments and observations. If those claims completely fail, the theory should probably be abandoned. But if only some fail at only certain points, we seldom simply reject the theory. Instead, we make adjustments and additions to achieve a better match between theory and observation. The revised theory may then yield new implications that can be tested. More observations may confirm parts of the theory while suggesting needed changes for other parts. This give and take process, testing, adjusting, testing new things, adjusting again, and so on, usually continues for a long time. Yet even as the process goes on, our scientific understanding becomes increasingly more sophisticated and accurate. The enterprise of ethics can be carried on in roughly a similar way. Although an ethical theory can't be tested by experiments, its claims can be tested by applying it to cases to see if results match our best moral intuitions. If the theory prescribes wholesale murder, it should probably be abandoned. But if its results match most of our best intuitions, and if we can adjust it for an even better match, then we may consider it partially confirmed. Having made further adjustments and finding more confirmations, we may start applying our evolving theory to less clear cases. Further extensions, confirmations, and adjustments may gradually produce an account that seems sufficiently correct to guide our moral choices. As our trust in the theory grows, we might next start allowing it to replace our own less certain intuitions, and so the process continues. Along the way, our moral insights and understandings will become increasingly sophisticated and accurate. As in the sciences, an objection or deconfirmation to an ethical theory doesn't automatically show that the theory must be abandoned. Objections and problems can instead be used for showing us where a theory needs adjustment. After learning about important problems with most ethical theories, people frequently conclude that ethics must be hopeless. But just as it would be foolish to give up on science because of problems with its theories, it'd be foolish to give up on ethics because we find problems with ethical theories. We may never arrive at perfection, but we can still make valuable progress along the way.